I'm not a jealous person, never, and I'm not a hater or anything like that. But sometimes I would just feel like, God, I'm doing everything right. Why isn't this happening for me? So full transparency. I used to feel like God forgot about me. Even with all the blessings he's given me, somehow I would still feel like he forgot something. Am I the only one who feels that way? It wasn't until that I got to know God and his character that I finally realized there's no way that he's forgotten about me. It's just absolutely no way possible. So when I was in this space of doubting God, it was hard for me to see his goodness and everything because I was just so focused on what I didn't have. And I didn't realize all the blessings that he's already given me. They were given to me in his perfect timing. So if there was something or something that I was praying for, I had to trust and believe. If I don't have it, then I don't need it, right? So when I was growing up, I always felt like I was behind. And I really think that feeling stemmed from me failing the fourth grade. I talked about it in another video. So when I was in college, I started hanging around. Like I found this group of girls, great women, and they were like my age or my age and a few years older than me. But they had their own cars, they had their own apartment, and I was still living at home. I was driving one of my dad's old cars, so I was so focused on them and why I wasn't where they were, not taking into account that I just had different goals. I was still in school. I had different goals and aspirations than they had. So they probably had a little bit more freedom to do things, and some of them were moms. So they had way more responsibilities than me, but I didn't see it that way when I was in it. So when you focus on everything else and other people, you lose sight of what God has for you. I'm not a jealous person, never, and I'm not a hater or anything like that, but sometimes I would just feel like, God, I'm doing everything right. Why isn't this happening for me? This was my thing. I go to church and I try my best not to sin. That was my thing back in the day. You couldn't tell me that going to church and trying to live right, like trying not to do the big sins, not even thinking about all the other stuff. You couldn't tell me that wasn't like, God, I'm doing this, so why am I not getting my blessings? I would go to hang out with my girlfriends, go to the club on Saturday, and be in church on Sunday. That was my thing. So I always felt like, man, I'm doing everything right. I'm not doing what other people are doing. Why are they getting stuff and I'm not getting nothing? And then I was focused on the stuff too. Listen, I was young, so that was totally the wrong mindset and the wrong motive to have, right? I never considered myself to be like a follower, but when I look back, I was kind of being a follower because my friends, like I said, they had their own apartment, so I used my student, refund check and got my own apartment. My dad was so against it, but he just allowed me to go ahead on and live my life. Oh, how I wish I would have just stayed home. I think I lived in that apartment for about 3 years. And I remember after I left, like calculating how much money I spent on rent. And it was like $25,000. I'm like, Lord Jesus. And then during that time, I had got a little small settlement check from a car accident that I was in back in high school. And I just had to have my own new car. So I put a down payment on my car. So now I felt like, God, you caught me up to speed. I felt like, oh, he caught me up, right? Because I had my own apartment. I had a new car. I was about 21 at the time. So I really didn't realize the blessings that was right in front of my face. Like I had a home to live in rent free. I didn't have to pay for groceries or bills or nothing. When you really get into adulthood, you cherish those things so much more than when you're in your early 20s, right? So because I didn't consult or trust God. I was just not being a good steward over the resources and the blessings that he had right in front of my face. So there were just so many unnecessary things added to my plate because I took matters into my own hands, because I just felt like God was taking too long, right? Can you relate to you just waiting for God? You feel like he's taking too long, so you just start doing stuff on your own. Yeah, no. But just like Abraham and Sarah in the Bible, so God promised them a son, right? So they decided to take matters into their own hands, and Sarah had this great idea to have her husband Abraham sleep with their servant Hagar, right? Then they wind up having a son, which was Ishmael. And this caused, I'm sure, so many unnecessary issues and problems in their lives. But like God promised, he did give them the promised son, which was Isaac. But he told them, and the crazy thing is, when I think he told Abraham, and Sarah overheard, and she laughed when she heard that God was going to give her a son or give her a child or whatever. And she didn't believe. But then time went on. She's waiting. She's getting older. She's like, you know what? This thing ain't happening. We're going to take matters in our own hands, and you go ahead on and sleep with her so we can have our child. And yeah, no, that did not. They did not work out. But all they had to do was to be patient, because God never goes back on his word. He was going to and is going to fulfill whatever promise that he made. He never forgot about them. And I know we feel like that too. Like, God, this is taking so long. What is going on? And when you think about the story in the Bible with Abraham and Sarah, it all happened in his perfect timing. His perfect timing. And I just want to encourage you, like, just like them, just like me, God has not forgotten about you. But listen, it wasn't until like a few years ago that I really started trusting God and adopting this mindset that God's timing is his kindness, as my pastor would always say. I just started to feel this peace, like if I don't have it, it's because I don't need it. If it didn't happen yet, it's because it's just not the right time. So anytime that like impatient feeling or the question of, God, did you forget that I asked for this comes up, I always rehearse that God's timing is his kindness. If it's your will, it will be done in your perfect timing. Now, listen, this took a lot of lessons for me to get here. And, I finally got to this point in my life where I'm able to be okay in the waiting season, in the wait. So I'm going to give y'all some Bible. Y'all know I got some for you. In Ecclesiastes 3:8, it tells us this. I love this. It's a little long, so bear with me. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. There is time. There is a time for everything under the sun. There's a time. And I know it can be hard when we're in it and we don't want to hear that. But in Ecclesiastes, it tells us that there is literally a time for everything. So sometimes you can feel like you're so prepared for something and it still doesn't happen. It's just because it's not the time. And I think I said this before. My pastor says it all the time. We can till the garden, we can plant the seed, but God has to make it rain. He got to make it rain. So, and he does that in his own timing, right? So in addition to me trusting God's timing, I had to learn how to silence other people and their timelines for me and their opinions for me. That was a big one. in my waiting season, or my feeling like God forgot about me, because people can try to rush you, or people can try to put their opinions on you, and now you're acting out or second guessing because they're in your ear. So one of my desires is for me to be married. I don't have any children, and if I do, great. If I don't, great. I'm fine either way. And I'm in my late 30s. I'm pushing 40 in a few years. So people are always telling me, like, you need to do this and you need to do that, to prepare for my spouse. You need to go to this place because you're always in the house. You need to do blah, 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 blah. Somebody always got something to say, right? And I had to learn, and I still had to remind myself that I'm not working on their timeline, right? Like, I'm ready and I'm in position. So when the time is right, we'll cross paths. And I was listening to this pastor on, I think it came across Instagram, Pastor Keon Henderson. He said something like, and I'll never forget this on this journey. It gave me so much peace and comfort when I'm waiting for my partner. He said, they'll be in your routine. So stop doing things that you don't want to do and going to places you don't want to go to, and just doing things that you don't like just because you're trying to find your spouse. They will be in your routine. So when I meet them, it's going to probably be in the airport. It's going to probably be at a restaurant, at a grocery store or something, because those are the places that I frequent. So he will be in my routine. And I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that. And I think once you get at peace within yourself, with your waiting season, and don't get me wrong, sometimes I do get a little lonely, and it rises up like, where's my mate? Where's my husband? But I always have to go back to God's timing is his kindness. Listen, when the time is right, I will meet him. It's not like I'm in the house 24/7 every day, all day. I do go out, and there's an opportunity for us to meet. So for me, I have to constantly remind myself, silence that impatient feeling. So let me give you some things that's helping me in my waiting season. So number one, I think this is the most underrated thing that we can do. I talk to God about it. I use the Me, Myself, and God journal. I have it right here. Y'all know I told y'all about this before in the last video. Me, Myself, and God journal. Listen, I jot down my thoughts to God. I try to be specific and transparent because He knows my heart. He knows what I'm dealing with. He knows what I'm faced with. And just like when Adam and Eve were in the garden and they were hiding themselves, God asked Adam, where are you? And it's not like God didn't know where he was. Adam needs to know where he was at. He needs to be self-aware. He needs to locate himself. So when I am writing in my thoughts and everything, I just try to be as transparent as I can be, because God already knows. He knows where I am. He knows where I am more than I am. So another thing that I do, I check myself and I switch my focus. So when I get in the space of like feeling impatient, I try to ask myself, I'm a very self-reflective type of person. So I ask myself, why are you feeling like this now? Like, did you see something or hear something, or is it being influenced by somebody else? Like, where's this coming from? Are you being selfish in the moment? I try to dig and get to the root of things. Like, I try to reflect and say, okay, in your waiting season, what can you do to prepare? Is there something else you can read? Is there something else you can do more of? Is there something that you should be doing less of? Do you just need to chill and relax? Like, what is it that you can prepare to do in your waiting season? And then I always try to look on the bright side of things, because there is always a bright side. And the last thing I try to do, I just try to settle my spirit. And I do this by rehearsing scriptures or words and things. And my big one that I'm on now is God's timing is his kindness. I also remember all of the prayers that he did answer. And I think about the timing of the prayer that he answered. The timing is always perfect. If I don't have it yet, it's because I don't need it. And for this season in my life. So I just want to encourage you. God has not forgotten about you. His timing is his kindness, right? So remember, everything begins with a thought. Change your mind, change your life, If this video helped you in any way, do me a favor, like, subscribe, share. Don't keep it to yourself. See you next time.